And then we camped on the top, on the summit. And then we watched the sun go down from up there. And then we watched the sun come up from up there. And then we came back down. So it was extraordinary in every way that I can possibly mention. It was extraordinary. But well, you asked about what it symbolized, what it meant for me. It was finding out whether I still could, basically. Finding out whether I still had it in me. Humans are so tiny and insignificant on this planet. We're like little ants running around, doing our thing. And if you can put that aside and just ignore that and appreciate the grandeur of Mother Nature, what all that she offers us, life is beautiful. It really is.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to this week's very special episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and I hope you're doing very well. It is a special weekend of observances around the world with the celebrations of Easter, Passover, Ramadan, and also recently celebrations of Holi in India and beyond. Whatever you celebrate, or even if you don't observe the religious traditions, I wish you and your families peace, love, and happiness. You may have noticed a few weeks' break in this podcast, and that was due to an emergency I had to tend to with my father's health. The great news is he is fine now, and we had a beautiful 90th birthday celebration for him just last week. So, happy 90th birthday, Dad. Life teaches you lessons day by day if you open your mind and heart to listen to them. The last few weeks have been quite trying for my parents, but I see their resiliency, their strength, and their true bond of love that will get them through anything, and it reminds me of the power of love. If we truly strip away everything, what is remaining? It's true love, and that is the heart and soul of our existence. So I dedicate this episode to my mom and dad, who have constantly given me the courage to move forward despite perceived obstacles in my way. Obstacles or fears are just that, and this is discussed in this next episode. They are often perceived in our own minds, and they come in many different forms. But if we truly believe we can do anything we want, we can develop the courage, the strength, and the determination to pursue it. This is what I advise my clients every day, and I recently shared this in an article I wrote for Cool Life magazine, which you can read in the link in the show notes below. We often hear the term, "I'll believe it when I see it." I encourage you to flip that on its head and say instead, "I'll see it when I believe it." If we truly believe in something, we will see it. It has to manifest in our lives. As Wayne Dyer says, if we want to change our lives, we need to change our thoughts first. I have seen this time and time again in my own life and through countless people I've encountered and interviewed for this podcast as well. Perhaps one of the greatest examples of this determination is my next guest, Dierdre Wolownick. Get ready to be amazed by her story, and I'll see you at the end with her key takeaways. Enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast episode. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and my goal with this podcast is to inspire you to realize your true inner power and potential and to live this next stage of your life to the fullest. If you may be going through transitions in your career or life and wondering what's next, I'm here to tell you that you can do this. And I want you to believe and say with confidence, it's my time now. To this end, I interview incredible women on this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their advice on how to overcome the obstacles in your way to reach your vision for yourself in your next stage of life. You are in for an exceptional treat today, as I am both honored and humbled to have on the show today Dierdre Wolownick. If you haven't heard of Dierdre yet, you will be amazed by her, and I can guarantee you that. Dierdre is from New York City and has taught 5 foreign languages on 3 continents for 44 years. Her writing in books and magazines worldwide has won awards, and her independent publishing company produced several award-winning and international sellers. A musician all her life, Dierdre founded and conducted the West Sacramento Community Orchestra and plays in many community orchestras and smaller ensembles on flute, clarinet, or piano and keyboard. At 55, Dierdre began running and has done marathons, half marathons, and other races. At 59, she began rock climbing. And at 66, she became the oldest woman to climb Yosemite's iconic El Capitan with her son, Alex Honnold, of the movie Free Solo. In 2021, she celebrated her 70th birthday by going up El Cap again and camping on the summit. She just returned from a 3-country climbing tour in Europe, and in 2023, the documentary about her life, Climbing into Life, will be available at film festivals across the country. Dierdre, I have been looking so forward to this for weeks, actually, for this interview, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yes. I was telling you earlier that I read your book, The Sharp End of Life, in one sitting, actually. It was so excellent and motivating. I really couldn't put it down. And actually, when I told my sons that I was interviewing Alex Honnold's mom, they were just so excited. And because I remember I remember them watching the movie and in amazement, and I did too. And I actually rewatched it. But since then, I've actually learned so many more and interesting things about you, which are equally, if not more, impressive. And I know you have probably been asked many times why you decided to start climbing and running and biking and doing all these high adventure pursuits in your mid-50s. But I kind of wanted to start with a question which may be a little bit different. And as you know, much of the audience that's listening are women. And often as women especially, we're taught at an early age that we aren't supposed to do certain things. And your life is really an example of the opposite. And you shared with me when we talked before that your belief is that you don't have to have credentials to do things. And that if you want to pursue a dream, you can learn how to do this. And if you train yourself, you say in your book, and I'll quote this, I knew I could do this if I could learn to play the piano, master several languages, and travel the world by myself, then I could surely learn to climb a rock. Could you share with our audience, please, Dierdre, your philosophy on lifelong learning, and at any age, actually?
Lifelong learning. Yes, I'm all for it.
Yes.
It starts when we're born. And if you watch little kids at all, kids know that the best time in the world happens when we're learning stuff. Kids, they see somebody do something interesting, all of a sudden they want to do it. They
Yes.
want to learn how. Kids want to learn how to do everything they see. And in school, this is kind of taught out of us. We're taught to sit still, not talk, pay attention, and do what they tell us, which is understandable if you have 60 little kids in a classroom. Yeah, you have to.
Right.
However, like the best vacations in your life, think back over your whole life. The best vacations are always the ones where you learn something. learn to ski, learn to scuba dive, learn to dig in an excavation, whatever. Or learn to travel in foreign countries, learn to read a menu in Greek, whatever. Those are always the best, because lifelong learning is who we are as humans. And it's, like I said, it's taught out of us in school, and parents really need to encourage that at home. And everywhere, and at home and on vacation, and when you're in the store with the kids, and everywhere. Lifelong learning is the key. I believe it's the key to happiness. It really is, because we're happiest when we have a goal and we're learning something, learning to be better at whatever it is, learning to accomplish something. I can't stress that enough. That's like the key to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I was talking about as we get older, but you're right. Like as kids, when you see kids, they're so fascinated by little things, and that fascination, sometimes it seems to kind of dwindle in a way as we get older.
As we go to school.
Yeah, yeah. And so the fact that if we can keep that little excitement or excitement for learning at everything in our lives,
that's the right word for it, the excitement. Kids are excited to learn new stuff. And we need to kind of keep that alive as they grow older.
Yes, yes. And you certainly have, because I mean, not only with your adventure pursuits, but you're learning with the music and teaching and all that. It's a great example of that. So thank you for sharing that. So kind of along the same lines, you talked about kids, and I'd kind of like to ask you about your belief about raising children. And not only can we teach them, but what we can learn from them. And you are the mother of 2 children who pursue extreme sports, both your son and daughter. And many mothers, or most mothers, would probably be fearful of letting them do these adventure pursuits. But you said, yeah. And there was one quote in your book that I'd like to read, which kind of summarized what I'm trying to say here, is that you said, "Don't you want your child to know what he's capable of, how much she can accomplish? I wanted both my children to know that about themselves." So I think sometimes, even without knowing it, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this as well, is that we put limiting beliefs on our kids. But you seem to have done the opposite. So maybe you could expand on this and kind of share what your thoughts are on that.
Well, you have to really think about our role as parents. What is your job as a mother or a father? What is your main job? The beginning, of course, is to protect them, feed them, clothe them, protect them, keep them from harm. But that's not our real job. The main job of any parent is to make themselves obsolete, to raise their children so that they don't need us anymore. That's our biggest job, because they're going to replace us, basically. So we need to teach them the skills so that they can replace us, so that they can care for us later, so that they can find out who they are, so that they know how to proceed in life. Again, is not taught anywhere in school. It's not even addressed anywhere in school. School is filling the pail, as they say, filling the pail rather than lighting the fire, mostly, unfortunately. But you can't really know how to put this. You can't really know what you're capable of until you try, whatever it is that you're talking about. People are very quick to say, "Oh, I could never fill in the blank. Oh, I could never climb rocks. I could never scuba dive," whatever it is, without having tried it, without knowing. They base that on fear. There's a lot of fear out there, and in the media, all over the media. Fear is the driving force. Fear of insecurity in life, fear of danger in life, fear of poverty, fear, basically, is how we rule our lives these days. And it's so unfortunate, because you really can't. I mean, I kind of knew this as I was growing into adulthood and becoming a conductor and a publisher, and I've been many things. And I kind of knew this intuitively, but it's only when I started going outdoors and testing myself, if you will, that I realized how important this is, and how the role we can play as parents in giving our children this ability to test themselves.
Yes. I mean, you must have been You must have been terrified, though, were you not, when you saw, like,
Yes.
when
Oh,
you
yes.
saw, like,
Oh, yes.
like when you saw your son climbing off of town without any ropes, and when you watched your daughter maybe doing her cycling
Yeah.
or running, and what thoughts came into your mind? And I mean, it's amazing that you actually encouraged that. And, but I mean, I know that I probably would have been completely
Aghast. You would have been
terrified.
aghast. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And when Alex was little, when he was little, 2, 3, 4, and in preschool, hang out with all the other parents waiting for the kids to come out of preschool or kindergarten, whatever, or on our little court. We lived on a cul-de-sac court where there were
yes.
no cars, so the kids played out in the street, and all the parents. I got so much advice because my son always was only interested in climbing. That's all he ever wanted from the day
Yes,
he was born.
yeah,
From
I
the very
read that in the book.
yeah,
Yeah.
he could stand up the day he was born, and he had huge hands, powerful thighs, and powerful hands. That's all he ever wanted to do. So other parents didn't get that. They didn't understand it. For one thing, they didn't live with it, and they didn't approve of it. It's not, I mean, they would spend all day out in the court tossing a ball for their kids, for their child to get better at that. But for my son to get better at climbing onto the roof and then onto the tree and then across the fence and all that, no, that wasn't approved of. So I got so much advice from people, from parents. Put him on Ritalin. It'll calm him
Oh my
down.
God. Okay.
It'll make him more normal. You take him to the doctor. They can give him something to make him more normal. I was aghast at that. I never let on to them because
Yes.
to them, this was the thing to do. This was normal. But God, why would you want to drug your child so that
Yeah.
he fits a more
Definition of normal, which they create. Yeah.
a more
Yeah.
well accepted definition of
Yes.
what children should be? That's horrible.
Yeah.
So I never drugged him, and I never took him to the doctor. And I mean, not to the doctor, but not for that. And
Yeah.
and he turned out to be. He was a wonderful child. They just didn't get what his passion was.
Yes.
And so you have to find first, as children grow, they try out different things. And job of a parent is to provide every opportunity you can for them to find their passion, figure out what they love, because that's not always obvious to anyone growing up. I mean, a lot of people don't find that until they're adults. And so you have to just keep providing the opportunities and let them try to find out what their passion is, and can they do it, and do they want to do it, and what do they need to learn in order to do it. Yeah. It's a complicated issue. I could go on, I could write a whole book about that.
Yeah, that actually, you hit on something there, because that was really our philosophy as we raised. I have 2 sons as well, and it was expose them to as much as possible and see where they land and what they'd find their own passions, and rather than forcing something on them.
Right.
And it is true. Like sometimes we get into things, and you were talking earlier about fears, and it's also that fear of judgment, right? Like you face that with the friends who are telling you he's not normal or whatever, but that definition of normal is not, it's not the same for everybody.
There's no such thing as normal.
Yeah, there is.
It is different. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that's great. So, and just to kind of, you talked a little bit about the fears, and we talk a lot about fears on this podcast. That's one of the main things that we all face at any stage in our life, especially as women, as we're trying to figure out what's next in our lives. And there's that fear of failure. There's a fear of regret, or as I talked about, not being good enough, or judgment, as I just talked about. And they stop us in our tracks, no pun intended, but I know I keep on giving quotes, but I think this one was something that maybe I'd like you to comment on, is that you said that now I know fear can be ignored, and fatigue is in the mind. If you think you can, you can. It's as simple as that, and not so simple at all. So I would ask you, for people listening, what would you advise them on how should I ignore fear? Or is that something that we should do, is ignore it?
Yeah, fear is a big issue. And as I mentioned before, fear is pushed on us by the media. Fear is taught to us by the media. You should be afraid of getting old. You should take this drug instead. You should be afraid of the pain in your knee. You should take this drug instead. I mean, it's horrible what's out in the like in advertisements especially. It's all
Mm-hmm.
for drugs. It's all for man-made, laboratory-made interventions in our lives, and we don't need that stuff. That's another topic altogether. But fear, no, you should not ignore fear. That's the wrong way to put it. There's a lot of different kinds of fear, two basic types. You should definitely not ignore the real kind of fear. I mean, if we had ignored the snarling of the saber-toothed tiger, we wouldn't be here now.
Right.
So there's two different kinds of fear, basically, that you have to think about as you go out into life, as a kid, as an adolescent, especially, maybe. There are two different kinds. The real kind, the real fear that warrants listening to,
Mm-hmm.
fear that something really bad is going to happen. You get a gut feeling that guy across the street that's been walking behind you for 3 blocks, you get a fear about that. You got to listen to that. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other kind of fear is what I call perceived fear. We think there's danger and we react to that perception. It's just perception, though. It's not real fear. Like the first time they took me out, my friends took me out climbing on a wall where instead of going up and down, back down to the ground, we were going to go up and then up and then up, keep going up and up and up more, higher and higher. I had only been climbing like 6 months by this point, and I was not very good at it. I mean, I was technically, yeah, I could climb physically, but I didn't know a lot about the gear yet. I didn't know a lot about what I was capable of. I was still learning. Mm-hmm. The learning curve in climbing is immense. And so we went up to the first pitch, the first rope length, and I got to a ledge, and we were about maybe 180 feet up off the ground, which when you're exposed out there just hanging on a rope, that's really high.
Yes.
People down on the ground were little tiny ants, and
Wow.
all I could see around me was peaks, mountain peaks, and sky. I pushed up to this ledge, turned around and sat down on the ledge, and I was all of a sudden absolutely, as you said before, I was terrified. I was absolutely frozen in fear. I had never experienced that before. I'd been afraid in my life, but not like this. All the other things I had done, like I'd been a conductor and I'd been a publisher and I worked in the airline. I've done a lot of things. And for example, the first time I got up on the podium to conduct an orchestra, well, that's a scary kind of moment, the very first time, because I had no credentials, no training to do this except my own. I was self-taught.
Right.
And I've been self-taught in most of the things I've done in my life, except, well, most of the things.
Yes.
But I knew in the back of my mind that if I did something stupid, the music would stop. I'd be embarrassed, but nobody was going to die.
Right.
However, up on that rock,
that's the potential. Yeah.
On that rock, all I could think of was if I do anything stupid, either I'm going to die or I'm going to take somebody with me. We're all going to die. Until I thought it through. I was on a rope. I was attached to 3 different slings that attached me to the anchor behind me. I wasn't going anywhere. I knew that in my mind, but my instinct developed over all these years of watching the media and listening to all this advice I was getting. My instinct first was, okay, I'm going to die.
Yes.
I'm going to die. I better not move. And then I just had to talk to myself and calm myself down and realize that, no, I'm safe. All my friends are bouncing around. It's a huge ledge. They weren't even attached anymore. It was so safe for them. They were so secure. And there I was, panicking on my little ledge. And so I had to simply teach myself that this was one of those fears that was only in my own perception. Mm-hmm. Teenagers are excellent at this, at perceived fears.
Yes.
Oh, they're all looking at me. Okay, this is a big one when you're a teenager. You got zits all over your face and you're awkward. They're all looking at me. No, they're not.
Yes.
We have to learn as we grow to teach ourselves about perceived fear.
Yes.
And most of fear in life, most, not all, because you have to learn to listen to that saber-toothed tiger out there. But most of the fears in our lives are perceived fears. Nothing bad is really going to happen if we mess up or if we, whatever. If we talk to that pretty girl over there and we make a fool of ourselves, Well, nothing bad is really going to happen. We're not going to die.
Right.
She's not going to die. You have to get it down to the bare essentials.
Yes.
And that fear is always a choice.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. Fear is always a choice. And we have to learn to make that choice wisely.
I like that. Fear is always a choice. Yes. I speak to that those perceived fears as those internal voice that
Yes.
there's an internal dialogue that's always going on in our heads.
Yes.
And there's that voice, that inner voice I often talk about in my coaching is that voice that tells us you can't do this, you can't do this. Oh my God,
Right.
like what's you're gonna die, you're gonna. And
Right.
so the way to kind of deal with that is like dial the volume down of that voice. And then, and as you said, it's a choice. How are you going to deal with that? Are you going to listen to it, or are you going to maybe ignore it?
Ignore it.
Yeah.
Not ignore it.
Just accept it that it's there. But usually it's there to protect us, right? Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, yeah, see, it's like my son always says in his interviews, it's not courage, it's not fear, it's not all these horrible things. It's you have to expand your comfort zone to include whatever it is. When I got up to that ledge, my comfort zone was still too restricted, and I had never done this, and I didn't know what to expect, and it wasn't part of my comfort zone, so it terrified me.
Yes.
But later, as I pushed the limits of my comfort zone or area, whatever you want to call that, to include being on ledges and looking out at peaks and stuff like that, then it no longer bothers you after that point. So it's not ignoring fear. You can't ignore fear.
You can't ignore it, yeah.
But you can include it in what's possible in your life. Yeah,
I love that. Expanding your comfort zone. And that kind of leads to what you said. There's, I guess, the flip side maybe of fear is courage. But I like the way you pointed it out is that it's expanding that comfort zone. So I know that we talked about this, but how in your life, I mean, other than obviously the adventure piece of it, how did you decide to take that leap and expand your comfort zone and get that courage to not only do this adventure stuff, but also you had some difficulties in your life with your marriage ended, as well as the loss of your marriage and your husband. So these are other things that happened that you managed or still managing, I'm not sure, to get through.
Well, first off, I take exception to your use of the word courage. Okay. The flip side of fear is definitely not courage. The flip side of fear, the opposite of fear, is foolhardiness. Another word for that, daredevilness.
Okay.
That's the opposite side of fear.
Okay.
Not courage.
All right.
Yeah. I don't think of myself as particularly courageous. I mean, courageous is a firefighter running into a burning building to save somebody. That's courage. That's different. But the flip side of fear is foolhardiness. A lot of people look at what my son did and they see him hanging on the side of El Capitan and they think that's stupid. What a daredevil. He's the opposite of daredevil. He's so studied and careful and safety conscious. It's the opposite of daredevil. And fear is part of that. You have, like I said, you have to expand your comfort area, your comfort zone to include the fear so that you can deal with it. But so I never really thought of it as courage. It's just conquering the fear, not conquering it exactly, but embracing it, making it part of you and accepting it, and then learning to distinguish the two kinds of fear. Because you do need to pay attention to the real kind. The real kind can kill you, can maim you, can ruin a relationship, can do all kinds of bad things. The perceived kind can't do any of those things.
Right.
The perceived kind is totally powerless over you once you learn to talk it through and to not ignore it, but talk yourself into no longer believing it.
Would that be the same in your personal life?
Oh yeah, anywhere.
Yeah.
This is true physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever. You have to learn to talk yourself into no longer believing that fear.
Mm-hmm.
The fear, I hesitate to call it fear. The bad thoughts about what the outcomes, whatever, they're always there. But you have to learn to teach yourself out of it too,
Mm-hmm.
to no longer pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk yourself into that. Yeah. That's good.
And to no longer believing it. I mean, it's
Yes.
always
Yes.
going to be out there. You're always going to get these messages from the media. You should be afraid of growing old because this is going to fail and that's going to fail. That's fear.
Those are limitations that society, I think, puts on us.
Absolutely.
A lot of us do listen to that, and then we don't push ourselves to do the things like that you've done, right? Because of all those
people are afraid to
beliefs.
try, right? Largely because of the media. I mean, I raised my children without television. We had no television in our house, and so they learned to be self-sufficient, to entertain themselves, to go outdoors and seek nature in all its grandeur and all its forms, and learn to be amazed by the world. And their friends would come over. They would all expect to sit and watch something. And in our house, you didn't do that. And they'd have a wonderful time.
Yes.
The screens are our downfall. Screens are our downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Both of my kids as adults have thanked me for that decision to not have screens in their house. Mm-hmm. And it's just so sad that everyone nowadays assumes that we have to live with that big screen in the middle of our life. And that's not true. I can't count the number of people who come to my door. I get solicitors at my front door and they say, which television service do you use? And I say, I don't have it. And they do not understand even what I mean. Yes. When I say I don't have television, they just assume I mean that company or something else.
Yes.
They do not even understand. Yes. No, people can't even absorb the meaning of without television.
Yeah.
That's the downfall of our civilization. It really is.
Yeah. It's interesting because when my boys were growing up, we never really, we didn't allow that, but we didn't encourage it, is the video games that you see kids constantly looking at. And I still see that a lot when we go out and stick the videos of these little kids around these crazy video games. And they actually thank us for that because we did other things. We do have a TV, but we did other things like
exactly.
And to that note, Dierdre, you have a blog that's called Dierdre's Place. And I was taking a look at it. It's a site about exploration, and you really kind of chronicle your adventures and the beauty of the world around us, just what we were talking about. So, and I strongly believe, and that's why I do this podcast, is that we can learn from each other's stories and from our adventures. And so can you kind of share, why you believe it's so important to have this blog, to experience the world around us? I know we talked about it a little bit, but what is it about what we can learn from the world around us and experiencing nature?
That's a very, very big question. And I mean, I could write a whole book about that.
Yeah.
Someday I might. But we have kind of lost, so we in the first world, not so much true in the third world, say, but we who live with televisions and computers and video games and all that, we have lost sight of the fact that we are natural creatures, just like kangaroos or zebras or foxes, or we are natural creatures. And we've cemented ourselves away from that. We've lost track of that. We've lost sight of it to the point where it creates fear in a lot of people. People are afraid to go outdoors. People are afraid of snakes. They're afraid of the coyotes. And they're afraid of, it's nighttime in the woods. Ooh, terrifying. But we are natural creatures. Mm-hmm. And Mother Nature has everything that we need. We don't need those drugs that are being advertised on television. We don't need those man-made, laboratory-made assists to get through the night, to sleep better, to wake up better, to eat better. We don't need those things. We need Mother Nature. She has all the answers. And the more stories we share about that, the better. I mean, there can't be enough of that
Yes.
because we have gotten so far away from that. We need to relearn that connection, us with our mother nature. And there's a reason it's for over the millennia. It's always been referred to as Mother Nature. There's a good reason for that.
Yes.
She knows what we need. She has what we need. Yes, once in a while you might need to take a headache aspirin or something. Fine. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the excess that has gotten us away from our natural lives.
Yes.
I mean, just walking down the street and walking 5 minutes in a park, a green park, is so beneficial for us emotionally, physically, in every way possible. I mean, you can read about it. The scientific papers have been published all about that, but we don't need the scientific papers. Watch any kids. Kids love, if you give a kid a choice, watch television in your living room, or go out and play with sticks and mud and stones and you're barefoot in the creek. And no kid's going to choose the television unless they've been conditioned to do that by their parents, or by the media.
Yes. Is that the basis for your blog, really? Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, I'm trying to share my stories and have people interact. It's easy to interact with my blog. You can just go down to the end of the blog entry and type your response.
Yeah.
And I love to read those. I welcome those. We need to open more of a dialogue about this because we have lost so much of our naturalness.
Yes.
And we need to get that back in order to, I don't want to go into, in order to save the planet. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Yes, we are killing our planet. And it's because we've lost touch with the fact that we are part of the planet. We think of ourselves as different and special. Humans are better. We can control all the animals. We can control the environment. Guess what? We can't.
Right.
And we're learning that. Mother Nature is angry. The planet is angry and sick because of us.
Yes.
So we need to open that dialogue and keep it going.
Yeah. Well, you're in a great position to be able to share those messages in terms of it's people look up to you. And so those messages are important to share. So I wanted you to tell us about your 70th birthday.
What a party it was.
And the party. Yeah, tell us. I mean, that to me is fabulous. And what did that symbolize for you, Dierdre? Like, what did that kind of mean for you?
I climbed El Cap with my son when I was 66. That was 4.5 years ago, something like that, in 2017. And immediately, not immediately, but following that, I had massive surgery on my foot. And that threw out limping for like a year on that. And it threw out my knee on the other side. And I had other issues on my knee. And then I had all kinds of health things going on, really serious stuff. And so I was housebound for a year. Then I went on a book tour. And then we had COVID. For like 4 years, I didn't do anything physical. I couldn't do anything physical. The climbing gyms were closed. I couldn't do that like the third and fourth year, second and third year of COVID. Everything was still shut down. And so I approached my 70th birthday was coming up, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know if I can still climb. I don't know if I can still run. I can't get together with my friends for my birthday. I can't have them over in my house because of COVID. We can't go to a restaurant because of COVID. I know. I want to find out if I can still get up there, if I still have it in me to do what I was doing before. And so I decided to try to get up El Cap again. We didn't go up the same way. When Alex, with my son, we went up an actual climbing route. I didn't climb it technically with my hands and feet on the rock. My hands were held jumars, which are gizmos that attach to the rope. They have teeth. So you can push them up, but they won't come down. So I basically laddered my way up the rope for 3,200 feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah. A lot of work. Oh God, so much work.
I heard that when you got up, it was dark.
Yeah, pitch dark. So not even a sliver of a moon. It was pitch dark, totally. Yeah, it was crazy. Wow. And then we immediately started coming down because with Alex holds the speed records on all the biggest walls in the world, and including El Cap. And he's beaten his own speed record several times, in fact. So when you climb anything with Alex, I don't know if you can see, but if you see all the pictures behind me, all the photographs behind me,
Yes.
those are all the peaks that I've done with my son. And
Wow.
they're all quite extraordinary, and not in terms of difficulty exactly. For elite climbers, these are easy. For beginner climbers, they're definitely not easy, but they're huge,
Right.
goals. More so than any of my climbing friends here in Sacramento will attempt, because they're too dangerous, because they're so huge as goals.
Right.
My son, though, to him, this is do this before breakfast and then you come down. So when I did El Cap with him, we went up and down in a day.
Yes.
I didn't realize that until like 4 years later how extraordinary that is. The climbers who set up the route that we did, the first people who ever climbed it, and all the elite climbers since then, when they did that same route, took like 4 or 5 days.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know that. If I had known that back then, I might not have gone. I might not have attempted it, because that's ridiculous a goal for an old lady. It really is.
Oh,
Nonetheless, with Alex, we went fast. We went up and down. So I didn't get to sleep on the wall. I was always curious what it was like to sleep up there.
oh.
So I decided for my birthday to go up the descent route, which is the way all the climbers come down. It involves a lot of scrambling over big boulders and rocks, and it involves a lot of ropes in the middle. So I decided to do that going up. And with a bunch of friends, there were 11 of us who went up that day.
Oh, fun.
And so I wanted to know what it was like to sleep up there. So I decided to camp. We were going to go up in a day. It took us about 6 hours, whereas with Alex, it took 13 and a half hours to get up. So it took us 6 hours to get up, and then we camped on the top, on the summit.
How
And
beautiful.
then we watched the sun go down from up there. And then we watched the sun come up from up there, and then we came back down. So it was extraordinary in every way that I can possibly mention. It was extraordinary. But you asked about what it symbolized, what it meant for me. It was finding out whether I still could, basically. Finding out whether I still had it in me, finding out whether in 4 years of inactivity, had that fear come back and taken hold again. And I did have to talk to myself a lot on that trip. And I was the oldest. There were four of us old ladies on that trip up.
Don't call yourself an old lady. You're not an old lady. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't think of myself, but there were 4 of those older people and 7 younger people.
Yeah.
And the youngest, of course, was 12. She and her mom did it with us.
12.
12. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's another story too. We should talk about that someday too. But
yeah. You can go ahead and talk about it if you like.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that. So what it symbolized was my coming back after 4 years of pain. 4 years of my foot was basically ripped apart, sawed off, and sawed bone in several places. Put everything back together with metal. And so I have a lot of metal now in my foot, and I can't do this and I can't do that. And so there are a lot of movements that are necessary for climbing that I can't do anymore. So does that mean it's over? Heck no. I needed to go out and find out if I could figure out other ways to do what they were doing. So that trip up, I said there were 11 of us. They all just raced up and did this, did that. I couldn't do it that way. I had to figure out other ways to place my foot, other directions to push, because my toes don't bend anymore, and my this doesn't work, and my parts aren't working the way they're supposed to. So it was harder for me than for everybody else, not because I'm older, but because of my foot and because of my knee. So yeah, it was symbolic in that I was figuring out all this stuff and finding out if I still could, and if I still loved it as much.
Yeah, but you kind of goes back to that lifelong learning. You're learning how to adjust
right, exactly,
to your circumstances, and you're not backing down. You're just figuring out a different way, a different route, if I may, right?
Exactly.
Fabulous.
Right.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. So I really can't imagine how you would top that.
Well, actually, last year I did. Last fall, I kind of did.
Okay.
As a climber, since I've only been climbing 11 years now, or 12 years now.
Only? Okay.
No, going on 13. Most of the climbing folks I know have been climbing all their lives, or since they were 20 or whatever. I started when I was 60. and since then, I've always dreamed of climbing, because rocks are different everywhere you go. There are different kinds of rock, different ways they're put together. All kinds of things are different about rocks everywhere in the world. So I always wanted to try the rocks in the Dolomites. The Dolomites are in northeastern Italy, between Italy and Austria, Italy and Switzerland.
Yes.
A huge expanse of incredible mountains that are different from, I've been in mountains now, a lot of places, and these are different. I always wanted to try them. And so last year in the fall, I did several speaking engagements in the Dolomites, and they all took me out climbing too.
Beautiful.
So I got to try that. And I got to try it in the Italian speaking part of Switzerland as well, in the Alps.
Right. Was it more difficult, or is it just a different terrain?
Just different. Not more or less difficult, just different. And it was outstanding. I can't wait to go back there someday.
Yeah, as I see you're light up when you're talking about it. I can see that.
Yeah. I can't wait to go back.
So, are you? What's next? Are you
well, this fall, this coming fall, I'll be speaking in the French Alps in Grenoble, and I'd like to line up some more as well if I can. I haven't been able to yet, but I hope to. If you know anybody who has any organizations or speaking needs that part of the world, I'd like to. I haven't climbed in the French Alps at all. I've done a little bit of hiking, not much. I climbed in France once down in on the Mediterranean, a place called Les Calanques, which is basically means the fjords. There's a whole bunch of fjords south of Marseille.
Yes.
There, it was outstanding. But this is different. Beautiful. This is alpine climbing.
Yes.
So I'd like to
try. I'm sure that anybody listening to this I'm sure there'll be people connecting with you.
I hope so. Yes. And during the month of May, this coming May, just in 2 months, 2 months from now, getting close, I'll be climbing all over Spain. I have some friends in Spain, and I'll be doing some speaking in Spain as well.
That's amazing. That's great.
So I love these trips for the linguistic part of it, because I speak a lot of languages, and when I was in Italy and Italian part of Switzerland, I did my speaking things in Italian.
I was going to ask you, do you speak in the language? Fantastic.
Yeah, and when I go to Spain, I'll be doing it in Spanish.
Fantastic.
And so I enjoy the trips for both things, for the climbing, the adventure.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Isn't that interesting how it kind of all came together? And
exactly.
Do you put any of your music in there as well? Or?
Oh, I would if there were an opportunity.
Maybe you can, while you're there, just conduct an orchestra.
Or I can sit down and play the piano for them. And
exactly.
All kinds of fun stuff on the piano. If they ask, I will certainly indulge them.
Yes. And I understand also, I had Melissa Davey on my recent podcast, and I understand she's the movie about your life is coming out as well. So that's an exciting year.
I can't wait to see it. The trailer is out. Yes. And the trailer is beautiful. The trailer is outstanding.
Yes, I saw that. I actually posted it on. So if anybody's listening to it and they want to look at the previous episodes, they can take a look at the trailer. But
so I hope the movie is the same quality as the trailer.
I'm sure it will be. So that's wonderful. I just thought there's this one final quote that I really liked, and I thought I'd just maybe end off with that. And it's the view from the top is not just a reward for your hard work. It's a reminder of how small we are in the grand scheme of things, and how beautiful the world can be if we're willing to push ourselves to see it.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
My son often talks about humans are so tiny and insignificant on this planet. We're like little ants running around doing our thing. And if you can put that aside and just ignore that and appreciate the grandeur of Mother Nature, all that she offers us, life is beautiful. It really is.
I can't top that. You're right. Life is beautiful if you open your eyes to it, right?
Exactly.
And if you're open to
turn off those screens. Turn off those screens. Stop those messages from that barrage of messages that's constantly directed at us.
Yeah.
Just
there's so much positive energy in the world. Let's focus on that and tap into that versus the negativity around us, right?
Exactly.
And
Listen to your children.
Wonderful.
Yeah, listen to your
Yes.
kids.
Yes.
They
Go
know
play
about
with the kids, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kids know
Yeah.
about positive energy. They really do. And
Mhm.
they know it comes from nature, and they lose that when they go to school. That's a battle.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We have
Wonderful.
to fight for them. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Dierdre, can it let us know where the best way to find you and anything else that you want to end off with?
Okay, I will. Well, the best way to find me, of course, is on Instagram or Facebook, just my name,
Mm-hmm.
and check out the trailer for the movie. That's going to
Yes.
be it.
Yes. And your blog as well, right?
And the book.
Yeah.
The book is called The Sharp End of Life. Sharp end is a climbing term. That's why I used it. But what it means is the dangerous end. The sharp end of the rope is
Yes.
the leader's end of the rope. The leader, the first person who goes up there, that's the person who takes all the risks. And if that leader falls, that they're the ones that get beat up, and it's the dangerous end of the rope. And my entire life was spent on this sharp end. You'll understand once you read the book. I never had it easy about anything. So it seemed entirely appropriate as a title.
Yes.
Sharp End of Life.
And it is a fabulous book. I'd highly recommend it for anyone. It's just very inspirational, and it gives an insight into how you've come how you've gotten where you are, and also about your children. And
Thank you.
congratulations for everything. Yeah, congratulations for everything that you've done, and really, really value and appreciate your time for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and good luck. And I want to see more of the adventures of all the places you go in the world. So
I'll keep up with my blog, and you'll
and definitely watch the movie when it comes out.
Great.
So thank you again, Dierdre.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed this very inspiring episode with Dierdre Wolownick as much as I did. Her resiliency, determination, love of our Mother Nature, and views on raising children and facing our fears are lessons we should take into our own lives. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, lifelong learning is who we are as humans, and parents really need to encourage this at home. It is a key to happiness. It really is. We are the happiest when we have a goal and we are learning something, to be better at something, to accomplish something. Number 2, the main job of any parent is to make themselves obsolete. Raise your children so they don't need us. That's our biggest job. We need to teach them the skills so they can replace us, care for us, and so that they can find out who they are and give them the ability to test themselves. Number 3, you can't really know what you're capable of until you try. 4, there are 2 types of fear. Number 1, the real kind that warrants listening to, our gut feeling, and 2, perceived fears. We think there is danger and we react to that perception. It's just perception though. It's not real fear. Most of the fears in our lives are perceived fears. Nothing bad is really going to happen. Number 5, you have to get it down to the bare essentials. Fear is always a choice, and we have to learn to make that choice wisely. It's not necessarily courage. You have to expand your comfort zone to include whatever it is that scares you. 6, the opposite of fear is not courage. It is foolhardiness or daredevilness. You have to learn to talk yourself into no longer believing that fear. Number 7, Mother Nature has everything that we need. We need Mother Nature. She has all the answers. The more stories we share about that, the better. We need to relearn that connection with our mother. Number 8, the view from the top is not just a reward for your hard work. It's a reminder of how small we are in the grand scheme of things, and how beautiful the world can be if we're willing to push ourselves to see it. And number 9, humans are so tiny and insignificant on this planet. We are like little ants. Appreciate the grandeur of Mother Nature and all that she offers us. Life is beautiful. It really is. That brought a tear to my eye, and I thank you, Dierdre, for reminding us all of these valuable lessons. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you enjoy it, please share it. and drop me a line. Send me a message at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca and tell me why you enjoy it or how I can improve it. I'm here to serve you, and if you want help climbing your own mountain peaks, reach out to me. I'm here for you. Book a call with me today and let's talk. Until next time, happy celebrations with your families and friends. And again, happy birthday, Dad.